Welcome back to the deep dive. We have a completely fascinating stack of sources to get through today.
Yeah, we are getting into some really heavy structural concepts. I'm excited.
Okay, let's unpack this. I want you, the listener, to do something for a second. Look at the device you're using to listen to this right now.
Like, really look at it.
Yeah, really look at it because, you probably think of it as a tool, right? A piece of glass, metal, and silicon.
Just resting passively on your desk or in your hand.
Exactly. You pick it up when you need something and you put it down and you're done.
But our sources today ask a totally different question. What if that piece of glass isn't a window looking out into the world?
Right. What if it is an ambient mirror?
And what if, every single time you glance into it, you are actively paying for the privilege of being monitored?
It's wild
Right.
because culturally we are so conditioned to think of surveillance as this aggressive top-down imposition.
We really are. When we hear the word surveillance, we default to these historical models.
Like the Stasi in East Germany, right?
Yeah, steaming open letters or wiring microphones into the walls of an apartment.
Or like Jeremy Bentham's Panopticon,
Exactly. The single guard in a central tower.
where the inmates can never tell if they're being watched.
Right. So we imagine these massive, shadowy budgets and concrete bunkers.
The guy in the trench coat reading a newspaper on a park bench.
Exactly. There's this inherent antagonism in that old model between the watcher and the watched.
The state forces observation, and the citizen tries to hide.
But the architectural reality we are dissecting today renders that entire trench coat model completely obsolete.
It really does, because today we are exploring the hidden mathematics of modern participation.
Surveillance isn't something done to us anymore.
No, it's something we continuously, willingly participate in.
The old model needed a camera bolted to a concrete wall.
Right, physically forced into your space.
But the new model relies on a self-sustaining system. It doesn't force you to comply.
Because your very existence within the system provides the power that runs it.
Exactly. And to understand how this ambient mirror operates, we have to look at the foundational architecture.
What the texts call the closed loop.
The closed loop. And the defining characteristic here is its total indifference to human morality.
Right, it doesn't care about our feelings.
Not at all. We naturally want to project our values onto our digital infrastructure.
Like we tell ourselves a social network wants human connection.
Or that a search engine is mathematically optimized to find the truth.
But it's not.
No, a closed loop operates on a primal mathematical imperative, which is just stability.
Not peace, not justice, not truth, just stability.
It wants to persist. And to avoid collapse, it has to constantly balance its inputs.
It's basically a mechanical instinct for survival.
Structural self-preservation. And it achieves that through a repeating sequence.
Okay, walk us through the sequence.
You act. That action generates data.
Okay.
The system refines its parameters based on that data. Then it observes the result.
And then I encounter this newly refined system, right?
Yes, and you adjust your behavior to match it.
Which generates fresh data.
And the sequence never stops.
Yes.
Nothing escapes the loop because the loop is not external.
It's completely participatory.
Right. In traditional observation, there's a boundary, like a pane of one-way glass.
The scientist looking into the Petri dish.
Exactly. The scientist is not in the dish.
But here, the observer is in the dish with you.
It is inextricably linked to you. It modifies the environment based on your presence.
I was trying to visualize this without getting bogged down in computer code.
Okay, how so?
Think about installing a brand new smart thermostat in your house.
Oh, that's a great example.
So day one, it doesn't know anything about you. It just needs a baseline.
Right.
I tell it, I like the living room at exactly 72 degrees. I act, data is generated.
But the thermostat isn't just a dumb heater.
Exactly. It's an algorithm seeking stability. And its version of stability is maximum energy efficiency.
So over the first month, what does it do?
It subtly shifts the temperature down to 71.5 degrees.
An incredibly tiny adjustment.
Yeah, the human body barely even registers a half-degree drop.
And if you do register it, the friction is so small you don't reprogram the whole machine.
Right. You just put on a sweater.
Or you drink a warmer cup of coffee.
You subconsciously adjust your own biological baseline to accommodate the machine.
You adjust, and more data is generated. It learns you tolerate 71.5.
So another month passes, and the algorithm nudges it to 71.
Before you even realize it, the system has trained you.
Yeah, it trained me to prefer its mathematically optimal setting. My behavior shaped the initial data, but then the system shaped my physical behavior.
Now scale that thermostat up from a living room to the entire digital infrastructure of modern society.
Wow, okay.
Apply that loop to global communications, banking, navigation.
Like using a map app to drive to work.
Yes, you want the fastest route,
Yeah,
but the app's algorithm wants to optimize overall traffic flow.
that's its stability.
Exactly. So it routes you and thousands of others through secondary roads.
And over time, my mental map of my own city changes.
What you consider the normal way to work is completely offered by an algorithm balancing thousands of other cars.
At that scale, the distinction between what I want and what the system nudges me to do completely collapses.
You literally don't know where your organic preference ends.
And where the algorithmic suggestion begins, they become one continuous thread.
Behavior shapes the system shapes the behavior. Over and over.
Until they are indistinguishable.
Which brings up a deeply unsettling philosophical problem from our sources.
Okay, what is it?
If the system only reflects what it is fed, and what it is fed is you,
Yeah.
where does an interruption even occur?
Wait, I see what you mean.
If you are the fuel, and the engine, and the passenger, how do you recognize you're in a constructed loop?
It's like trying to bite your own teeth.
Exactly. You can't step outside to look at it because the you that is trying to look has been shaped by the loop.
That is heavy. But pushing past the philosophy for a second, there's a massive material question here.
Resources.
Yeah, the physical resources. Building and maintaining this global surveillance apparatus takes an incomprehensible amount of stuff.
Server farms the size of small towns.
Underwater cables stretching across oceans. Colossal cooling systems.
It's physically massive.
So if there's no shadowy government agency funding this with billions of tax dollars, who is footing the bill?
Well, according to the texts, the mathematics of this infrastructure are entirely self-financing.
Self-financing how?
There is no external sponsor required. The system operates as a perpetual engine of participation.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting.
To understand the economics, we have to drop the idea that surveillance requires an invasion of privacy.
Because invasion implies overcoming resistance, right?
Yes, breaking down a door or stealing a hidden file.
And invasion costs money. Force costs money.
Exactly. But this system doesn't need to break down the door. It just needs you to walk through it.
No force necessary, just participation.
The arithmetic operates on a seamless cycle. Every single interaction is measurable.
Clicks, movements, transactions.
And even moments of complete stillness.
Wait, stillness.
Yes. Because they are measurable, they possess value. Value becomes fuel.
Fuel finances the expansion of the system.
Expansion increases the capture of more data. And capture generates deeper value.
Let's slow down and look at the anatomy of that data capture.
Sure.
Because understanding how a moment of stillness is monetized is just mind-blowing.
Clicks make intuitive sense.
Right. I search for running shoes, I click a link, I buy them. That data is valuable to an advertiser.
But the architecture actually measures the pauses.
This is the crazy part. Explain the pause.
A pause is one of the most data-rich signals a human can provide.
Really? Just pausing.
Think about scrolling through a feed of images. You move your thumb at a consistent speed.
Right, just swiping along.
You don't click a link. You don't like a post. You leave no deliberate trace.
I'm practically doing nothing.
But your scrolling decelerates for 1.5 seconds as a specific image passes the center of the screen.
Just a slight hesitation.
And then your thumb accelerates back to baseline. You did nothing deliberately.
But cognitively, I experienced friction.
Yes, that 1.5-second hesitation is a micro moment of attention.
It could be interest or disgust or just confusion.
Whatever it is, it interrupts your baseline pattern, and it is instantly measured.
That is so hard to wrap the mind around.
In microseconds, that pause is quantified, packaged, and entered into a real-time bidding market.
So the exact moment I hesitate over a photo, say a luxury watch, an automated auction is happening in the background.
Absolutely. Your 1.5 seconds of attention is sold to an algorithm representing an advertiser.
Bidding fractions of a cent.
Just to serve you a related piece of content 3 scrolls down.
And that revenue goes directly to the platform.
It pays for the electricity cooling the server farm that stores the data of your pause.
That is unbelievable.
It pays the salary of the engineer writing the code to detect your next hesitation.
I am literally shoveling coal into the engine of the machine that is actively measuring my heart rate.
You are. The data you provide passively is traded to refine the system's ability to capture more nuance tomorrow.
The system doesn't just watch me. I pay the system to watch me, using my own attention as the currency.
It's a perfect loop.
But wait, I want to push back on this a little, just playing devil's advocate.
Go for it.
Even with this elegant loop, surely humans have to build the servers.
Yes.
Someone has to write the base code, run the fiber optic cables. It relies on the physical world.
The material reality is undeniable.
Yeah.
Humans architected the initial framework.
Right, so it's not magic.
But the perpetual engine refers to the sustenance of the system once it's active.
Ah, okay. The ongoing lifeblood.
Yes, and that doesn't rely on coercion. It relies entirely on the constant continuation of daily human life.
It doesn't need my explicit permission to survive.
It only requires your continuation. Continuation is a biological and social constant.
It doesn't force me to log on. I just want to check the weather or message my mom.
It intertwines itself with the basic mechanics of existing,
Every mundane action just reinforces the system.
which forces us to look at the psychological toll of being the engine.
Yeah, because if our organic behavior and the system's optimization are fusing into one loop,
The traditional boundary between the watcher and the watched completely disintegrates.
we're moving into the collapse of the observer here, right?
Yes. The binary model, the guard in the tower looking at the prisoner, assumes directionality.
A vector pointing from A to B.
But in this architecture, observation is ambient.
Like ambient light in a room.
Exactly. It doesn't come from a single spotlight. It permeates the entire space.
Bouncing off every single surface.
Every device acts as a lens capturing data and a mirror reflecting a constructed reality back to you.
So I am the subject of the observation and the sensor gathering the data.
Observation becomes multidirectional and inescapable.
So what does this all mean for our psychology?
It means you begin to observe yourself entirely through the metrics provided by the system.
While the system observes you validating those metrics.
Feedback becomes identity,
Wow. Feedback becomes identity.
not imposed from the top down like in the totalitarian state.
Right. They aren't assigning me a uniform or a class.
It is constructed from the bottom up through endless algorithmic loops.
Consider how we view our own biological wellness today.
Yes, the wearables.
You wake up, and instead of just asking yourself if you feel rested,
You look at an app.
yeah, you rely on the system's algorithmic interpretation of your heart rate variability to tell you how you feel.
You are observing your own body through the system.
Or think about how we construct our tastes. Music is a huge one.
Have you ever curated a playlist and realized later the algorithm basically took over?
Oh, absolutely. You start with 3 or 4 bands you like.
The algorithm takes those points and clusters you with millions of other users.
It says you will respond positively to this unknown track.
You listen, you enjoy it, you add it.
And fast forward a year, I'm looking at my end-of-year listening summary, feeling this deep sense of personal discovery.
You feel pride in your unique, eclectic taste.
But that taste was systematically architected by the system I was feeding.
The algorithm didn't just predict your preferences.
No, it actively authored them.
By placing specific stimuli in your path at the exact right mathematical moments.
I feel agency, but the parameters of that agency are strictly defined by the system.
The mirror does not reflect an objective reality of who you are,
It reflects a heavily curated, mathematically optimized version of me.
which you then internalize and enact, generating more data to refine the mirror further.
Are we productive? We check our task manager analytics.
Are we socially valued? We check our engagement metrics.
If observation defines our behavior, and our behavior feeds the observation, is there even an outside anymore?
Structurally, the concept of an outside becomes entirely abstract.
You literally can't step out of it.
There's no exterior vantage point because the cognitive tools you would use to view it have been sharpened by the mirror itself.
Which brings us to a terrifying practical question.
How do you rebel?
Yeah. If you recognize you're trapped in this self-funding surveillance loop, the natural human instinct is to fight back.
To resist.
But how do you push against a wall when the wall is made of your own daily habits?
Our texts refer to this as the calculus of embedded resistance.
It totally dismantles our romantic notions of rebellion, doesn't it?
It does. We usually view resistance through the lens of physical conflict, opposition.
And to oppose something, you must be separate from it.
You need a boundary, a dividing line.
If you want to step outside a box, you first have to find the edge of the box.
You have to touch the cardboard.
Right. But if the box is your social life, your banking, your map app,
Right.
where is the edge?
The edges have blurred into the fabric of daily life.
Resistance becomes geometrically impossible to locate.
Because you cannot define the edge, you cannot stand outside of it to apply opposing force.
So what happens to the concept of resistance?
The mathematical nature of resistance fundamentally shifts. It is downgraded.
Downgraded, that is the perfect cold word for it.
It goes from an existential threat to a simple variable.
It strips all the romance out of the fight.
In traditional dynamics, a labor strike stops a factory.
A boycott starves a corporation. The system breaks under the friction.
But in an ambient loop, your active resistance is merely a statistical deviation?
A temporary, localized fluctuation.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, systems always stabilize. They absorb the imbalance.
I was thinking about this. It's like trying to protest the ocean by splashing around in it.
That is a perfect visualization.
Imagine you walk down to the beach, absolutely furious at the sea.
Okay.
You wade into the surf and start violently kicking, splashing, and screaming at the water.
Exerting massive amounts of kinetic energy.
Yeah, you feel like you are taking action. And locally, right around your body, you create a temporary imbalance.
You whip up froth and chaos.
But the ocean operates on a planetary scale. Lunar gravity, deep thermal currents.
The ocean doesn't perceive your splashing as a threat.
No. It perceives your splashing as kinetic input.
It just absorbs your energy.
It dissipates the ripples, and within seconds, the water settles right back to sea level.
You haven't damaged the ocean. You just interacted with it.
And the digital system absorbs the kinetic energy of your ideological defiance the exact same way.
The loop normalizes the data.
So if someone writes a passionate, deeply researched manifesto about the dangers of algorithmic surveillance,
And they publish it on a massive social network.
they are generating immense engagement.
People will argue in the comments, share the post, spend significant time on the page.
And the platform will just serve ads against the manifesto.
Exactly. The system monetizes the rebellion.
My ideological opposition is mathematically indistinguishable from enthusiastic support.
Both generate time on site. Both generate data that refines behavioral profiles.
The system does not care why you are generating the data.
Intent is completely irrelevant to the architecture. It only cares that you generate data.
The click of a revolutionary and the click of a loyalist weigh exactly the same on the server.
The equilibrium of the system is maintained and actually strengthened by the friction.
But wait, if active resistance, the splashing, just feeds the ocean with more energy,
Yes.
then the logical escape route is to stop splashing entirely.
Ah, the digital detox.
Yeah. If action is fuel, what happens if you try to do absolutely nothing? What if you pull the plug and go silent?
It is a profound human instinct to believe that withdrawing our voice withdraws our presence.
We think, if I just log off, they can't track me.
But the calculus of this architecture captures absence just as efficiently as action.
This is a devastating realization from the reading,
Silence is not the absence of data.
because the mathematics of information theory don't allow for a void, right?
Exactly. In a continuous stream of expected data, a sudden gap is not an empty space.
It's a structural feature.
Silence is a pattern interruption. And pattern interruptions are intensely detectable.
Imagine you're a detective tracking a noisy car through a dense city.
Okay, you're tracking it by the sound of the engine.
Right. And suddenly, the suspect realizes they're being followed and cuts the engine to hide.
The car doesn't vanish into thin air.
Exactly. The sudden, absolute silence in the middle of a noisy street tells you exactly where the car parked.
What's fascinating here is, even your withdrawal is a measurable signal.
Your silence is counted.
Reduced activity immediately becomes its own rich data set.
So if I use an interface for 30 minutes every morning and then drop to 0,
The system does not delete you from its memory. The drop triggers a separate set of protocols.
it begins to measure the dimensions of the absence.
It analyzes the shape of the silence.
How long does the detox last? What content preceded the withdrawal?
Did you go silent after high-velocity scrolling? That indicates algorithmic burnout.
It aggregates my silence with the silence of millions of others to learn the limits of human fatigue.
It maps the exact threshold where users abandon the interface.
So my desperate attempt to starve the machine is instantly converted into a diagnostic report.
A report on how to feed the machine more efficiently tomorrow.
It doesn't need me to speak. It just needs interpretable input.
And withdrawal is highly interpretable. When you drop off the grid, the system calculates the statistical half-life of your resistance.
It knows, based on demographics, that I'll probably return in 72 hours.
It might even deploy an automated prompt, an email saying you missed important updates.
Timed perfectly to hit me when my resolve naturally weakens.
Action is fuel. Silence is a signal.
Active resistance is monetized. Withdrawal is measured and analyzed.
Splashing makes waves. Floating makes a thermal imprint.
The architecture captures everything because there is no mechanism for an uncounted expression.
Every variable is just another integer in the equation.
Which brings us to the final state of this mathematical model.
When we zoom out and look at the board after all the pieces have settled,
We arrive at the equilibrium.
the final balance. Within this architecture, there's no pending collapse.
No external force applying pressure to break the loop.
Because the loop has internalized everything.
Action generates data. Inaction generates data.
Participation fuels the infrastructure. Withdrawal reshapes it.
The observer and the observed have fully converged.
Input perfectly aligns with output.
It is a completely sealed, flawless ecosystem.
And mathematics rarely provides cinematic climaxes.
Yeah, that's the thing. Culturally, we are waiting for a grand explosion.
A dystopian movie climax where hackers bring down the mainframe.
We want a massive societal awakening that shatters the glass. A dramatic emotional spike.
But mathematics just provides stabilization.
Just the slow, silent settling of a system finding its perfect level.
It doesn't need to rule over us with an iron fist.
It simply needs to be us, and let us be it. We are the system.
We fund the infrastructure that monitors us.
Through our noise, our transactions, and equally through our digital detoxes and silence.
The mirror we look into every day is polished with our own attention.
All variables are accounted for. The loop sustains itself.
The architecture is complete.
And so, we aren't going to leave you with a neat conclusion today.
There is no easy wrap-up to the arithmetic of our daily lives.
There is no call to action because, as we've established, action is mathematically compromised.
We just want you to let the weight of this reality sit with you.
When the observer and the observed are the same system.
When the data you generate funds the infrastructure that monitors the data you generate.
What does resistance mean mathematically?